Well, hello again. We're here at Frankfurt, raining Frankfurt, where ESL 1 takes place, and I'm joined by Nahas, by a man who, well, I barely can imagine analyst panel without. So, hello, sir. Good morning. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm excited for day two.
Well, as our community is not really, Russian-speaking community is not really familiar with you, so would you please tell a little bit about yourself, how you get involved into Dota, why did you find this attractive for you, so what you started with?
So I got into Dota mostly by accident, actually. So I'm a professor. I'm a professor of economics at the University of Western Ontario, and I got into Dota largely because I happened across some VODs of games that were TI1 broadcasts by Toby, and I heard him cast the game and thought this is really cool. And just by pure coincidence, I happen to have a brother-in-law that is 17 years younger than I am, and I was looking for something to talk about with him, and I happened to mention Dota, and he was really into it. He had played Warcraft 3 Dota. So he was the one that got me into the game and taught me the game, and just by coincidence, I happened to meet Cheever one day in Twitch chat, and I was typing a few stats in for some of the Starladder games. It was actually Starladder that I started with. I was typing in a few stats for those games because I was really interested. It was I think 4 or 5 seasons ago, and she said, "Why don't you just come in game with us and do stats?" And I said, "All right, why not?"
Wow, so you started doing stats for that Dota site, right? So have you launched this site, or you just joined the team?
What do you mean?
I mean, is that your website? I mean, have you created this, or you just joined?
Dota?
Yeah.
Oh no, Dat Dota is run by a guy named Martin DeCouda. It was, in the beginning at least, it was mostly one guy, Martin. Now there are a number of other people that have since joined up. My good friend Knoxville, Ben works for that site now. But it really is mostly one guy who was just very interested and put up all these numbers, and he is insanely generous with his time. Way back when I first started working with this stuff, because I'm a full-time professor, I only have so many time to actually run numbers. I would ask him, "Hey, can you put this information up? Can you change the way this page works? Can you give me this sort of format?" And he was amazingly accommodating. And so, and that's what I found is that there's so many people out there who are so interested and so passionate about Dota 2. It's very, very easy to get information. People are really willing to think and to work on this game.
That site as well. That's our #1 source.
It's great. It's really amazing. And the guys, you know, the guys at Dota Buff are equally amazing for pub matches. I mean, I am there's a couple more sites out there. Track Dota, which was just acquired by Dota Buff. There's Dota Max. There are a number of others. Just there are so many people out there that have a passion for our game and a passion for numbers, and that work really hard to make these things available to the community.
Well, okay, I got it. So you start doing your statsman's job first, and then you became a media personality. So what helped you forward to advance from just statsman to be a analyst and work for?
You know what? I'm not even sure I know the answer to that question. I think I made the transition to talking about Dota rather than just typing in stats last year during the TI4 qualifiers, when poor capitalist, my great friend Austin, was stuck in Berlin by himself, casting games pretty much around the clock. And one night he was dead tired enough, and he said, "I literally can't cast this next game by myself. Will you cast with me?" And
so he approached you.
Well, we were both, I had been doing stats for him, and we of course had talked back and forth many times, and he was like, "Look, I'm totally dead, you know, do you want to cast this next game?" And I kind of said, all right, I talk for a living, how hard can it be? Now it turns out I'm not really that great at casting, but it was a lot of fun, and that's what made me more interested in getting into the on-camera side of things.
Okay, as one can notice, you've been working with Joe in Dota. You're working in the events covered by Joe in Dota. So, can you please throw the light on the form of your cooperation with this organization?
So I'm not really officially affiliated with anybody. This is my hobby, and I'm always very careful to say that because I love Dota. I love this community a great deal, but currently this is something that I do as a hobby. I love being a professor. I've been incredibly blessed over 15 years being a professor to teach amazing students, and I'm certainly not ready to give that up. But I am also very blessed that great people in the community like Join Dota want to have me at these events. So I do not officially work for Join Dota, but I am very, very happy and lucky to work with them.
I think they are just lucky to have you. And could you please reveal a secret? How can you combine this with your professor's career?
Well, it's a much more natural combination than you think. I was educated in economics, and I'm a professor of economics, and that's what my PhD was in. And again, completely by accident, I feel like I've said that 10 times already. When I started my career, I worked at the University of Chicago. I was very, very lucky to get a job there. And the class that they needed me to teach was a basic statistics class. Literally, people that had never worked with numbers before, teaching statistics. And initially, I was very unhappy when they told me that that was the class that I was teaching. And it just turned out to be a ton of fun, because I walked in on the first day and said, I can't teach things that I find boring. I don't work like that. And so I said, okay, I've got to teach stats. What are we going to do? We're going to do baseball. We're going to do poker. We're going to do football stats, because that's what I find interesting. And my number one rule is I'm not going to talk in front of other people unless it's about something that I'm passionate about. So that's what we did in that stats class, and that's kind of how it's grown with Dota. There are a lot of parallels, and the skills that you develop in terms of making numbers interesting to people are very much things that the community is hungry for. Because like I said before, there's just a ton of stuff out there. There's an amazing amount of information about our game. There aren't necessarily people that take those numbers and make them really pop to the casual fan, and that's what I want to do. I want to show people that a lot of these numbers and information that we have out there about the game is really, really fun. You don't have to be a stat geek to get into Dota stats.
Absolutely, that's what we're missing, because in the CS community, I just have a feeling that the statsman's work is underappreciated, underrated, because of, numbers are boring. So I believe that you have plenty of suggestions how to make it more entertaining, right?
I think so. I think
that's what you're doing.
I think we still have really only scratched the surface in terms of what we can do with numbers. I mean, you look at what other professional sports broadcasts have been able to do with numbers. You have NBA shot charts, right? You have NFL passer ratings, and you look at the amazing people that work for companies like ESPN that have been able to make these numbers real to people. I mean, fantasy baseball and fantasy football are popular for a reason, and part of that is because we've been able to make numbers matter to the fans, and I think we can do that. I mean, there already nominally are things out there that are called Dota Fantasy, but I don't think there's really Dota 2 Fantasy out there yet, and there will be the Dota 2 equivalent of shot charts, and it will be live, and it will be epic. You have not seen even the beginning of what we're going to be able to do.
That's what we're striving for, just to make it more professional, and the perfect example is a professional sport.
Yes. Look,
we don't need to invent something new, right? We just need to apply it.
I teach business for a living, okay? And one thing that you learn teaching business for a living in any fast-growing industry, if you think that you're going to be successful a year from now doing what you're doing right now, you're dead. You might as well leave, okay? I have a problem. I teach this to my students all the time, and they never believe me, that a lot of people believe that you go to school, you learn stuff, and then you get a job and you use that stuff. No, no, no. All of us that are serious about our careers, that are serious about our work, we're trying to get better every day. And that's really the attitude that I see in the Dota 2 scene, is that the top studios, the top casters, they're not satisfied with what we are right now. They want to get better. And that's part of why I've engaged so much with this community, and I love where we're going. Dota 2 will be bigger and better a year from now than it is right now.
Jesus, your passion is so contagious. I can even feel these waves. Well, what I want to ask you next is, you're a professor, so what your students think about this?
Well, I'm not really sure. Recently, my sort of on-camera incarnation is a relatively recent phenomenon, and so I'm only now starting to be commonly recognized by my students. But I mean, those that have think it's pretty cool. I mean, I had one student on the final exam this year. I had a really hard question at the end of the exam, and one student wrote as his answer, "I don't know how to answer this question, but I think C9 is going to win TI5." That's full credit, man. Check.
Nice approach, right? And does your family support you?
You know, my wife had to be an incredibly patient woman to marry me in the first place. And so she is incredibly patient with my strange little hobby. And my dad is jealous that I got on ESPN before he did. So yeah, the family's very supportive.
Nice. Do you play Dota much? Are you playing some pubs or something? And have you tried to teach your family to play Dota as well, or to understand it at least?
So I play Dota. I do. I don't get nearly enough time to actually play the game as I'd like, and that's part of why I love analyzing. Casting is much more difficult because to cast well, you have to play regularly. You have to be able to apply that knowledge in real time, and that's where I don't get quite enough time to actually play the game. I mean, I'm not horrible. I'm like a 4K player, but it's a little bit iffy, guys. But in terms of teaching others, I mean, I've introduced some of my friends to Dota, but it's a game that's a big time investment. There's a big upfront investment that needs to be made before it's really going to pay off, and you're really going to start enjoying the game. And that's also why I'm really excited about some of the new features introduced with Dota 2 Reborn, with the Source 2 engine. I think we have a very unique opportunity right now to make the game more accessible, to make it easier to learn, because there's certainly all of this complexity in the game that makes it great, that makes it exciting to me and to a lot of other people. We can also make our game more accessible to people that aren't hardcore, and I think that would benefit all of us.
Well, you have a lot of positive feedback, I believe, in internet. So, do you enjoy interacting with your fans, and do you feel like they're condescending to you to some extent? Like they feel some respect to you as a mature professional, as a professor?
So, if anything, the opposite. I mean, it's one of the things that you go through when you start to become a little bit known. I mean, I'm no famous guy, but you start to learn to interact on Reddit and on Twitter, where, you know, I am used to being spoken to as student to professor, and, you know, on the internet it's not quite that way, but you get used to it, and it really is fun. You get, people have very strong opinions, and what it continues to amaze me, we have some really, really smart people that play our game, both in the community and up there on that stage. I mean, our pro players are brilliant. Like, I tell them, any one of you guys out there, pro players, you guys want to stop playing Dota 2 and come get a master's degree in finance. Come talk to me, okay? These kids are really smart, and I shouldn't call them kids. They're not that much younger. I'm not that old. But I have really enjoyed the interactions on Twitter, on Reddit, some of the articles that I've written. Again, the time that I have to devote to this is a little bit limited because I do have, you know, my real job. But I absolutely love it when people out there interact. Especially, the wonderful thing about numbers is there's never just one right way to look at things. And when someone comes to you with an alternative way of looking at an analysis, using some different numbers, a different take, you know, my attitude is that makes you better. You know, it's not a matter of right or wrong. It's a matter of, we all want to understand the game as best we can.
Nice. As a professor, you probably got used to be surrounded by youngsters. So the same here. Well, what did you learn? What did you learn from your younger colleagues here on the analyst panel? How did you get along with them?
First of all, great. I mean, on the analyst panel, I mean, these guys are younger chronologically, but if anything, they're the teachers and I'm the student. I mean, these guys, when you talk about, I'm standing up there with guys like Hani, Merlini, and Milk, their experiences in this community, in this game, are just a lifetime of knowledge. And, you know, if I can supply something to discussion, that's great, but I'm learning from them. And you know what? this is also the reason why I love Dota so much. You know, I am a professor largely because I love seeing talented young people succeed. We have a hell of a lot of talented young people in this community, and the talent that walks up there on that stage each and every match, it's awesome. And if I can be a part of that success, sign me up.
That's great. You know, in Ukraine, in Russia, I believe as well, like the major part of professor stuff, they just consider pro players and gamers, not pro players, they don't even know what is that. I mean, they consider gamers to be retired, you know? Like, you're wasting your time. You should, I don't know, do your homework or something, so...
That is one thing I want to change. Honestly, if there's one thing out there that I really want to fight against, I want my students, my finance students who play Dota 2, who play other similar online games, I want them to be able to walk into a job interview and say, yeah, I play that game. Because what is it? I mean, what are we trying to teach in business? We're trying to teach real-time strategy. We're trying to teach how to make decisions under pressure. We're trying to teach how to outplay somebody. That's gaming, man. I mean, you want to talk about trading stocks has a lot more in common with playing Dota than anybody thinks. And the skills that we develop as players and the understanding of the game and the deep strategy involved and being able to apply that strategy in real time, if you don't think that that has a huge premium in modern business, you're crazy. This is not just a game.
I want to be your student. May I attend your class when I'm in Ontario?
Anytime, anytime. The invitation is open.
Super, super. And before I let you go, I want to ask you about some new feature that we've been witnessing at this event. Mm-hmm. You've been using Teams ranking, developed by Dota, I believe, for seeding. So have you been involved to that? Maybe you were... No?
The ranking that I use personally is a set of ELO rankings published by my good friend Knoxville, again, Ben Steenhuisen. He worked for 2P, now is freelance, works with that Dota. He publishes a set of rankings. I'll send the link out on Twitter. They're very good. I correspond very often with him about the way that they're compiled. There are a number of power rankings out there for Join Dota, for Go-To Gamers, I believe. I'm not involved with those. I don't really know how they work. I cannot comment on that, but I do know there are rankings out there that I know and that I use, and I'm happy to share them with anybody.
Do you think it could be useful to have some, I don't know, like standardized rating, joint rating, where all of this, yes,
I do.
To use it in more widely?
I think in many ways, I believe that Thorin had a video a while back that there are a number of ways in which Pro Dota 2 could emulate ATP, the Pro Tennis Tour in particular. That's one of them. I think having a consensus set of team rankings that would be adopted by tournaments might be helpful in a number of ways. But again, that's something that a lot of people need to get together on.
I see. Okay, that was really, really interesting to talking to you. I really enjoyed this interview. I was honored, actually, to make this interview. Before I let you go, do you want to give any shout-outs?
Well, I mean, obviously, shout out to my friends at Join Dota. Biggest shout out has got to be to my wife for being patient enough to let me do stuff like this, and to Toby, because really, you know, when I first heard him cast, I heard the same kind of passion that I have when I teach, and that's what really got me into the game to begin with. And a huge shout out to ESL, because this is one of the more unbelievable events that I've attended in any capacity. It's humbling to look out and see what our community is capable of, and I am very grateful to them for allowing us to do this.
Yeah, this is a really cool event, probably one of the best after the International. By the way, can we expect to see you at the International?
Maybe.
We hope so. Looking forward for that. Well, thanks again for your time, and have fun here. So you have fun as well. Thank you for watching, and stay tuned for more videos to come. See ya.